Well, my name is Alan Olson, and this afternoon, the Rhode Island Music Hall of Fame, including myself and Dana Nugent, are going to interview Chris Vachon about his life and influence and how his music has impacted the state of Rhode Island in so many different ways.
Hello, everybody.
I'd like to start from the beginning. Can you tell me about your background, including where you were born, a little bit about your family and your neighborhood?
Sure. I was born in 1957. That makes me 56. I was born in South Kingstown, actually Peacedale, but I guess you would say South County. I've got three sisters, and I've got my parents, and the only existing parent is my mother's. It's 93. My dad passed away about 7 years ago. I grew up in the neighborhood there. Things were kind of different back then, I guess. There was a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and we just kind of got to run wild, and not like today where they just have to monitor the kids all the time, because there wasn't any, there was no fear of abductions or any of that kind of stuff, so we kind of ran wild and stayed out all day and all night, and it's kind of a cool place to grow up, and I had a lot of good friends, and I'm still here, and things have changed, but I moved around for a while, tried a few things, but ended up back here again.
So how long did you live in Peacedale before you moved on?
Well, I lived in Peacedale till I was about 12, and then moved to Wakefield and stayed there till about, I think I was about 18 when I had just gotten out of high school, and I was playing with Sibylla and the Slimbuckle Band, and we used to play over at the old Sunnyside a lot, and then we decided to move to Florida to see if we could, what we could do there.
That was later while you were in high school?
It was after I got out of high school. I got out of high school like in the middle of my 12th grade.
Okay.
I had enough credits to get out, and so we moved to Florida. We got a band house. Everybody got set up, and we tried it for a while, but it really didn't pan out like we thought it was gonna, and so I ended up leaving there, moving to New York for a while, trying that out. I spent about a year doing that, and that wasn't happening too much anyway, because in New York you have to be in like 7 bands to make one pay, so I kind of got a dead-end job there for a while, and then when I came back to Wakefield, it was still 18. You could drink at 18, so there was a lot of work, and I hooked up with Just Us, which was a country rock band at the time, and we got a house down near Narragansett, and we were working like 4 or 5 nights a week. We didn't have to go out of the state, basically. So.
I'd like to get to that in a little bit, but back to Peacedale. What kind of musical influences did you have when you were a kid? What did you listen to?
Well, the first music I can remember is actually my sisters. They were older than me. 2 of them are older than me, so they had, they had like Johnny Cash and Chubby Checker and Roger Miller, stuff like that they were playing. So that was like the first stuff I really was exposed to. And so, that went on for a while, and then my oldest sister, Renee, she brought Meet the Beatles. And so when she brought that home, that was like the light went on, you know what I mean, for me, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And so I did everything. I made cardboard guitars, and just I used to stand behind the Beatles poster, and I basically warped the record. I wore it out, as a kid, and finally it had to get tossed out. But that was my first, inkling that I was going to try to be a guitar player and be in a band. And I think, that was, 64 or something like that. So I was pretty young. And so I got my dad bought me a little 3/4 scale acoustic guitar, and I tried to bang around on that for a while, and I took a couple of lessons. Probably half a year I took lessons, but my teacher was really a good teacher, but she was trying to teach me out of the Alfred book, you know, and it was like Red River Valley and stuff I wanted to play rock and roll, so I finally just sort of, you know, I stopped doing that, and I just started to pick stuff out by ear, you know what I mean, so.
And did you listen to the records? Were there any radio stations in Rhode Island?
Oh yeah, well WPRO was what we listened to when we were kids, and at that point in time there was so much good music. There was, you know, there was all the top 40 stuff and everything, and it was all mixed. It was Motown stuff. It was, you know, this and that. I mean, it wasn't any one kind of thing. So that's the stuff that I was listening to as a kid, you know. So there was, everybody was on there, Beatles to, you know, Temptations, and so I guess I just always gravitated towards good songs that, you know, I remembered, and stuff that was, I felt like was, you know, put together well and stuff like that.
Well, what does that mean, a good song how put together well? What grabbed you?
Well, something that you remember, number one, right? I mean, you know, everything back then, you know, was hook oriented, so meaning that, you know, you would remember something in the song, so you would, you know, like that song, dance to that song, or whatever, you know what I mean? So that was kind of my early thing with music. So yeah, and then I ended up after a while getting some guys together, and you know, I think the first name of our band, the first band I was in, was actually formed out of Cub Scouts, and it was called the Falcons, and we had two acoustic guitars, a snare drum, and an accordion.
And when is this about?
I must have been probably 10, okay. 10 or 11, something like that. And, probably 10. And we, you know, our outfits were like turtlenecks and stuff. We did that for a while, and then for some reason or other, the accordion guy dropped out, and I think the first public performance we ever had was up at URI when they built that new arts center. We were in a little contest, and I think we sang Last Train to Clarksville or something, the Monkees tune.
Okay. I remember reading that somewhere when I did a little research.
Yeah.
Was that was a kind of a song that would have grabbed you at the time as a
yeah, I mean, we were, you know, the Monkees was on the TV, you know, the series, and they were, you know, they were really popular at the time, and it was something that we could learn and try to repeat. You know, we had these little high voices and stuff, but you know, I don't even know if I don't think we won or anything. And there were a lot of local people doing. Ed Valley he had his band, and you know, they were older than us, so I don't know whoever won, but that was kind of my first public thing, you know. So I kind of liked the whole thing, so I kept trying to do it, you know. Did you go back to any music lessons, or did you do it all by ear? No, I never went back to lessons. I just did it by ear, you know. And back then, well, for a long time, most of the time when I was growing up, it was just drop the needle, pick it up, drop the needle, pick it up. It's not like now when it's a lot easier to learn stuff, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube now for kids, and you don't even really have to go to a teacher if you don't want to, because there's so many YouTube videos that you can learn, you know. It's pretty cool. Different world. So what happened after the Falcons in terms of music? Well, I don't know. I think I didn't play in a band after after that for a while, and then I got into a band in 5th and 6th grade in the Hazard School that was here, and we had a rock band that was part of band. I don't even know if we ever had a name, but we used to. That was kind of part of our band thing, where we would learn songs and stuff, and try to, perform for the kids and our age group, you know what I mean? So I did that in 5th and 6th grade. Once I got into 7th grade, we had another band, and that's when I started playing dances. You know, I think we'd get like $30 for the whole band. You know, that was like a big deal. And we might know about 7 songs, and we just stretch them out. You know, we like do Sympathy for the Devil for like a half an hour. stuff like that. And, I did that, and then when I got into high school, I that's how I got into blues. Once I got into high school, I was still in junior high, say like around 7th or 8th grade. I met this guy named Artie Harris. I had watched them play, and he turned me on to Live at the Regal, the B.B. King album. He gave it to me, and he said, "Here, check this out." So, I heard that, and I was like, wow, I want to try to do this. This is really cool, So I played that. One summer, I just played that record over and over, and I tried to, emulate B.B. King, which nobody can really do, but I tried, And that was kind of my start with the blues thing, And I liked that because I didn't really have to ever learn stuff note for note, It was kind of improvisation too,
So was that the exposure to African American music, that B.B. King record? Was there any other?
Well, no, because I
media?
wouldn't say that, because like back when I was a kid, when the radio was on, we really didn't discern, black and white. It was like whatever's a great song, the Temptations were on all the time, Supremes. So I was listening to that too, and then there was a lot of white artists too. So there was never really any. I wouldn't say, I concentrated on anybody's thing, you know what I mean? It was just the blues thing, that was just something that I thought that would work for me, And I still played other stuff too. I mean, we had a band right out of high school, still in high school. We used to practice and play out on the weekend in Misquamicut. We play every weekend over there, and we did a lot of Average White Band and Lynyrd Skynyrd, whatever was on the radio, we'd learn and play, on the weekends. So I never really stopped playing pop stuff until later on. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And is this the point where you said you went to Florida then, after high school?
This was after high school, yeah. We went there. That was an original band. That was kind of like, I don't know if you remember Sibylla and Bob Moulton was, we called it the Slim Buckle Band, but we all pitched in. Chuck Smith was in it, and
Chuck Hooler?
Yeah, and Eric Brennan,
and
we had Joanne Polana on drums. So, but we would all kind of write songs, and that was when that's when I started to try to write songs. So that lasted for a few years,
And where in Florida was this?
We moved into Winter Park, which is near Orlando, kind of, and we did some gigs and stuff like that, but it didn't work out like we really thought it was gonna. You know what I mean? And we were young, we had our own little issues and all of that, so. We kind of ended up. Mark Tabor was in that band too.
He was.
Yeah, and it's a funny story about the house that we rented. I'll never forget this, but we there was about 6 or 7 of us. We move in, and they were asking. Well, we were all saying, "Well, what room do you want? What room do you want?" And Mark picked a walk-in closet. That's what he wanted. We're all going scratching our heads, going, "What?" But that's what he wanted, and he was with us for that period, and I always enjoyed playing with him. He's great, We had a good time with that band.
So then you went back to Rhode Island after that point, you said?
Yeah, I went back to Rhode Island and started playing with Just Us, it was called, which Chuck was in too, and Frank Angel and Eric Brennan was in it too.
They still do the fundraiser every year for the...
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Eric North. Joel Langlois was in that band too.
He was?
Yeah, he was the drummer. And so we were able to, like I said, that back then, I moved back to like a lot of work. We didn't have to go too far because there was a lot of kids out all the time. And so we did that. Then disco hit.
Well, with Just Us, what venues did you play here?
We used to play. We played the Sunny Side. We played the what they used to call it, the Sundown Lounge, I think, over there. It's a car dealership now.
Wakefield.
Yeah, it's on 108 going up to
okay.
up towards the college, and we would play up in Pawtucket at my brother's pub. We actually would go up north too. We'd go into New Hampshire and Vermont, and just whatever we could get, But there was always gigs, I think I probably made more money than I do now. But I'm just kidding. But we would just kind of all live in a house and split the rent, and the rest of those stories I can't really say because.
Okay, that's no problem. Well, to get an idea just of the venues you got to play in, there was a music scene in South County. Then you're saying at that point.
Yeah, well, we used to play at the Narragansett Cafe 2 years ago. I'm trying to think of places that we played, Bay Voyage and down there. I don't know. I can't think. Oh, the Lamp Post there in North Kingstown. I can't remember them all, but there was always a little, routine we do, and we always kept busy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And was there any blues involved at that point, or is
Well, with that band, not really. That was country rock kind of, because we had Chuck played the pedal steel, and we did like Pure Prairie League and just stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I can't. That's so long ago. I can't remember all the stuff we used to play, but Eagles stuff, and it was that kind of stuff.
So, when did you start playing blues more? So then,
well, I'm trying to think of when. I mean, it kind of sort of snuck in different.
really?
With like if I was in a band, I might do a couple of blues songs or something, or the band would, and then I started my own band. Well, actually, I started playing with Tom Enright and Laura Anderson, and we had this band called the Spot Finders. And
Okay. Was that the one Rudy mentioned that he?
yeah, probably, but there was several versions of that.
Okay.
Tommy was the original guitar player, and I played bass because Tommy, was a great guitar player, and we always needed a bass player. And you always need a bass player, so I would play bass. And but we did a lot more blues stuff at that point, as well as R&B stuff too. So I did that for a while, and then Tommy left, and I started the band up again as my own band. And so I had a bunch of original stuff, but we do blues stuff too. And that's pretty much where I knew about Roomful, but never, I had never heard them yet.
Heard of them, but had not.
I heard of them,
live.
but hadn't seen them. You know what I mean? I heard how great they were and everything. And then I had my own band, and we actually opened for Roomful, and I think I met a couple of the guys, Doug James, a couple of the guys, and then. They must have remembered me as something, because a few years later Ronnie Earl was going to leave, and so there was a period where they were looking for people to fill his spot, and so I forgot. So that was about that happened, and then Ronnie kind of didn't leave. He balked on the whole thing and decided not to leave. And so there was a period of time when he was there, and when he did finally leave, it was probably about 4 years after that, he left permanent. He was going to leave permanently, so they were looking for people, and they tried me out at Lupo's. They had a gig, and there was, there was a lot of guitar players, trying out that night, and but for some reason. I didn't get it. They ended up hiring a guy named Tommy Kay. I don't know if you remember him. He didn't record with the band. He was in the band for about 3 years, and I guess what happened was after that, and in the meantime, I had been playing with Be Willie Smith.
Right, but to get the time frame when you opened up for Roomful that time, do you remember where and when that was?
That was at the Bonneview.
Huh.
and it would have been early 80s. You know, I don't remember the exact year, but in the meantime, I joined Be Willie Smith, which was a Connecticut-based band. They were very popular, and we had a lot of good times. I think I played with him for a few years with those guys. Then I joined A to the Bar, and I stayed there for about 18 months. But that's when the guitar player broke his arm really bad, Tommy. And so I filled in. I left A to the Bar and filled in on a California tour with Roomful.
Okay.
And so we did a bunch of things in California, and this was when Tommy was healing up his arm, you know, and then we came back, and I don't remember what I did for a while, but Tommy, it was when Stevie Vaughan died, Tommy left. It was right around the same time, and they asked me to join the band. So it was about 7 years from the beginning to the end.
He died in 90.
Right, 1990. Yeah, that's when I joined.
That's 9 years of.
Well, maybe it's 9 years. I can't
hit and miss, and
yeah,
you finally got in 90.
Yeah, it was a long time.
When you were in A to the Bar, was that your first real exposure to jump blues, playing it?
No, Be Willie Smith actually had horns, and they did a lot of.
Okay, tell us a little about Be Willie Smith.
They were, a very popular Connecticut-based band. They still do. They still have reunions once in a while, and they played, all over the place. They had we had the truck and all that. And we used to go around to, in these areas. We would be in Newport, at Harpo's and Bonneview, and then there was a bunch of places we played in Connecticut. I think we played in Westerly at the Nick, if I remember right. I think I was in that band for at least 2 or 3 years, and then I joined A to the Bar. Bunch of great people, and also very long-standing. Those guys, they've been around for a long time.
Just played on Sunday in Integrate.
Did they? Yeah, they do that every year, and they were doing similar stuff. I mean, obviously there was 1, 2, 3 girls singing, so there was a lot of that type of stuff. And I was in that for about 18 months, and finally, I got the call from Roomful, and I thought, well, this is kind of what I wanted to do, and I thought would be good for me, and I was lucky, that they wanted me, so I just left A to the Bar and went with them, and that was the end of that. I've been there for 24 years now.
And who was in Roomful in 1990?
When I joined, it was Greg Piccolo was playing sax and singing, and then Doug James, Carl Queerfirth was playing trombone, then John Rossi was playing drums, Junior Brantley was keyboards, Rich Latai was still there, trying to think of who else we had on. I don't remember who we had. Oh, I think we had Larry Peduzzi on bass when I joined, or Paul Tomasello. I can't really remember, but I think that's everybody. And that particular version of the band lasted for a couple of years until Ray came in. Ray Norcia came in, Sugar Ray.
And he became the singer. And
he became the singer. Yeah, Greg still sang, but Ray would do most of the vocals,
So, how did you become the band leader, though?
Well, the band, we made 1, 2, 3 records, and after the third record, and those records did pretty well. I mean, it was at the time when there was when AAA started up in radio, AAA radio, and they really didn't have. It wasn't a programmed thing, so they could play what they wanted to, and that helped us out a lot because we got a lot of our stuff on the radio. So we were going all over the country, and we're selling records pretty good, and we had big crowds and stuff. But after that, after Under One Roof, 5 of the guys just decided to leave. I think so it was Carl, Ray, Doug, Doc, and I said Doug already, didn't I? Somebody else, I can't remember. There were 5 guys at once, so it was and I had at the time we had a record contract still, and we were expected to do another record. So I thought, well, hell, I guess because I had been involved in the recording part of the whole thing, for those records, I just figured, well, and nobody else wanted to be the band leader anyway. Who the hell wants to be a band leader? But I guess by de facto, I was like the band leader, and so I got some guys back in the band, and we put together There Goes the Neighborhood record, and we recorded it with Phil Green at Normandy, who had worked with us before. So it wasn't, it was a tough time, but it worked itself out, I mean, it was a little stress there because obviously we had to make a record, and we had to do this and that and get the band going again, but it all happened, and we did okay with it, Then it's just been, from then on, I've been sort of doing those sort of duties.
Yeah. Well, can we look at, I'm a music guy too, and I'm always interested in voicing. Voicing of the instruments, voicing of the horns,
yeah.
Voicing of the guitar.
Uh-huh.
This is how I also get free guitar lessons, by asking questions like these.
Okay.
What is different about Roomful's voicing of the horns compared to, like, I don't know, different horn bands in other places like Chicago, or down in Texas there was the West Side Horns, or the Uptown Horns?
I think, well, first off, I mean, it depends on how many horns you have, obviously, at one time. I mean, we've had up to 5 horns, so they get voiced differently with that many instruments. It would be different if there's only 3 like we have now. But I think I'm not a horn player, but I think that it's really to try to be as full as possible for the horns, you know what I mean? And then it took me a while to learn how to play behind horns, or be able to back them up, you know what I mean? So I'll play, like if we're doing a jump tune, I'll try to play maybe 2 or 3 notes of a chord instead of playing the whole chord. You know what I mean?
So the
try to move around
Uh-huh.
and to make that kind of sound.
So the horns are doing most of the voicing then, while then the guitar parts would be
just kind of backing them up, but staying out of the way of certain notes too. You know what I mean? So you're not getting in their way. So it took a while, but that's what I really like about Roomful anyway. Is that there's a lot of people that can solo, and there's a lot of people that can back you up, when you're soloing. So I never really cared that much about playing guitar solos all night, because it's kind of like, it is what it is. After about a half an hour, if that's all you're hearing, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
You want to hear something else, So that's not a problem with us, because there's always somebody ready to play a solo,
So then your role is to vamp on the chords and throw in the occasional little lick.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
Interesting.
You just try to sort of build it. You know what I mean? As you're going. That seemed to be the way I worked it out. I didn't really. Nobody told me what to do. I just kind of took me a little while to figure it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And songwriting. You said you started to write songs as a very young person.
Right.
When did you decide that you really wanted to do it in earnest?
Well, when I got into well, actually before that, I had my own band, so I started to write songs, but they weren't all blues songs or anything. There was a few that were, but there were other things that I was doing, maybe pop kind of songs, believe it or not. But then when I got into Roomful, we had, we had the opportunity. I was in the band for probably about 3 years before we actually got the opportunity to record. And I think I only had one song on that record, and then the next record I had two, and then the one after that I had more. You know what I mean? It's kind of escalated because it was just like, well, we have to do a record. We have to come up with some songs. You know what I mean? So that would give you some, would give you a little incentive to try to write songs. So, yeah.
And what's your approach when you write a song? How do you?
Well, I like songs that you can remember. Maybe something catchy. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I guess I would go for. I never really got into writing like straight up blues songs that my baby left me. You know what I mean? This kind of stuff. That's one thing about Roomful. I mean, if people will listen, they'll hear the name, they'll say Roomful of Blues, and if they don't know the band, they're thinking, Weepy Blues, it's going to be bummed out songs and stuff.
But it ain't.
No, it never was like that, you know what I mean? So, my stuff, I guess I just tried to do stuff that I thought was going to work, and maybe even possibly get on the radio or whatever, because we needed that at the time, and you always need that, It's a lot harder these days because those, when I was talking about the AAA, sort of the free open format, well, those stations all got bought out, and now they're all classic rock. So they're all like that now. So, we very rarely get on it. You gotta hear Stairway to Heaven at least a few times a day. But great song, but I mean that's kind of where radio is now. So I don't know.
So is Roomful's outlet touring more or less then? And
yeah, well, yeah. I kind of noticed. I mean, we were really busy for. I think I was going for like 15 years. Really, I'd come back for a few days, maybe a week, and we'd go out again. So. Back then I was a little younger. I thought it was the greatest thing going, and we'd travel around in these vehicles that were just like should have been condemned, We'd be broken down all the time. The first tour I went on with them, we didn't even make it out of Stanford. I mean, we just kind of broke down, and that's the way it was. It was like I think we broke down 7 times on that tour. I'm like, what's this? We spent more time in the garage. I said, oh, it's great. I joined the garage band. So it was the joke. But yeah, we went all over the place. I mean, the band is actually, in the years that I've been in it, I've been in like 22 countries. We've played everywhere in the United States, every state. Except for Hawaii, that's the only place that we haven't gone. And I've just played some really cool places that I thought I'd never go to, like Russia and Turkey and Lebanon, and just places like that you don't really think about going to. You know what I mean? But you get invited to go, and we've had a lot of nice people treat us nice. And we went to Beirut a few years ago, and everybody's, oh, what are you crazy going there? It was great. People treated us really nice, and we never had any problems. So I feel lucky, they got to do that.
At some point while we were talking, you were talking about that you were starting to get experience as a recording engineer of sorts, and here we are in PM
Recording Studio. This is my place, and I have a partner, Matt Wunsch, and for me, I was always interested in recording. When I was a kid, I used to go and take like 2 tape recorders and start on one tape, play that tape and record to another tape, add something. When you're a kid, I would borrow stuff from the high school, and so and then I've had a couple of smaller 8-track studios. So all through my years, I always was interested in this stuff too. So, I really like the fact that I can record other people and not just me and my band, you know what I mean? And I get some joy out of that, because it's like I can sit back and, you know, listen to what they're doing, maybe help them out, or if they want help or whatever, you know. And so I really enjoy doing this.
Any other music projects besides Roomful of late? Is that taking up all your time?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, I've never really like concentrated on anything, you know, other than this, because it's kind of takes up all my time. I've mixed and done stuff for people, done their CDs, you know, here and other places. I enjoy doing that, but as far as playing, you know, I really haven't been able to commit myself to anything else, you know.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Busy. Yeah, speaking of that, maybe we're taking enough of his time for now.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Well,
thank you
it's
very
cool.
much, Chris. Really appreciate
I guess I
it.
forgot to mention the Groove Masters too. That I was.
The Groove Masters. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
I was
thing
in
you
that
said
band
so.
for
All right.
quite a while. And we, you know, you were there. We just did a little reunion.
That's right. Yeah, with Dennis. Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good, really important question. What was your relationship with Dennis McCarthy? How did you meet him? How did you
Well,
start
I
playing with
mean,
him?
I think I met those guys down at the Bond View when they. I think they were in between bass players. I'm not even sure. They had somebody subbing on bass, and so I kind of started talking to them and everything, and they asked me to play. I sat in, you know, and so they asked me if I'd be interested in playing with the band. So I said, yeah, you know, it sounds good, and so I played with them. It was after Bill Maelli, and I guess they were looking for somebody. Billy was the first bass player, and so, you know, I really enjoyed playing with those guys. I mean, it was Paul Murphy on guitar, and Dennis and Milo on drums, and John LaMoya, and you know,
About when
I
is
think
that?
I probably played with them for at least a couple of years. I was living up on Federal Hill, and we had a lot of good times. You know.
Oh, okay, that opens up a whole other thing I was thinking of then. When was that when you joined the Groove Masters?
What year?
Well,
I don't remember.
80s.
80s. It would be 80s.
We'll go with 80s.
Probably later 80s. Well, mid 80s, I'd say.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
you played the Providence circuit then at that time.
Yeah, we played all around, you know, and we always had a good time, you know, and you know, and then I play with Dennis every once in a while, you know. I mean, he'd call me up, and probably the last couple of years when he came back here. He was in Florida for quite a while, but I actually played with him 2 or 3 days before he passed away, you know. And Paul passed away while he was playing with Duke Robillard, and we were all in Canada when I heard about it. And he passed away in Brazil. You know, Paul Murphy. Yeah. But yeah, I forgot to mention that. Great guys, you know. I mean, we had a really good time. I think we had a pretty unique sound and stuff. So, yeah.
So, what clubs did you play in Providence? Did you do the living room and all
We
those
did
places?
we did the Met every week, every Wednesday. We do the Met.
The Met was located where then?
The original Met was near Leo's. I forgot what street that is. It's not Elbow Street, because Elbow Street was the next. Then the Last Call opened up, and we moved our thing over there for Wednesdays. But you know, we played. You know, I can't remember all the places we played. I mean, but we were pretty busy, you know, and then we moved it over to the Last Call. We always had good crowds, but the original Met was that place was.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it. Yeah.
There was a little hole in the wall, you know. It was a cement box, kind of, and you know, people would pack in there, and you could pretty much get as drunk as you wanted to, because you couldn't fall down because there was too many people. And you know, that's the way it went. I mean, people just used to have a great time, and you know, it was not that big, that place, but they had, it was all the Providence bands, you know, the R&B type bands blues bands played there, you know. So yeah, that was really cool. And then you know, we moved over to the Last Call, and you know, we did that for a while, and then I ended up leaving. I can't remember why I left, but I probably left for my own thing or something like that. But yeah, those guys, really good guys. Dennis was a great guy, you know, they all were, and yeah, a very creative guy. He actually was behind most of all the songs.
Really?
Yeah, Paul and him, I used to work together a lot, I guess, and Gary Cummings worked with him too. Gary was in the Dynamic Johnsons before the Groove Masters, and I guess those two worked together too and wrote a fair amount of the songs that carried over into the Groove Masters, for what I understand. Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm glad we got that in there. Totally forgot. I think we all spaced out on that one.
So
Glad
yeah, I'm working on Gary's record right now.
Ah.
So. Yep.
All right. Well, I guess that'll do it.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
When you got the call to be in the room full, I mean, they have a litany of great musicians in that.
Right.
How did you feel emotionally? You could tell. You can tell a talent.
Yeah, I was very happy about it. I mean, you know, if you think about how many people they could have had, I mean, really, there was. The night I tried out at Lupo's, there was probably 6 guys that were all great, you know. And, I don't know why they picked me. I never asked. But yeah, I was pretty happy about it.
Were you intimidated?
No, I wasn't, because I was kind of like...
Confident.
I had kind of wanted to do it for a long time, and it took that long. So when it did happen, I was just like, okay. The only intimidated part of it was that they asked me they told me I had to go immediately on tour with them in California, so I had like a day and a half to learn, like, you know, 25, 30 songs.
Wow.
So that kind of, you know, that was a little bit of anxiety there, but I did it, and you know.
You did it.
You gotta do what you do, you know. Gotta do what you can do.
Yep.
So.
I remember seeing you guys. Roomful opened up for Delbert McClinton at the old tent, the Warwick.
Oh yeah.
Heard that? Yeah. Groove Masters played that.
And
too.
I was kind of blown away by the way that you just like orchestrated that band. I mean, you pushed it.
Yeah.
You were pushing the band. Was that a philosophy of yours to?
I don't know, not really. I think I get involved in the music, I guess, you know. It kind of gets me, and yeah, I mean, I think my part of if I'm a band leader, would be, you know, to put a show together so that things kind of flow, you know what I mean? Like, instead of, I mean, there's a lot of bands or blues bands that kind of take a lot of time in between songs.
Like one to the next.
Flying around for a while. But ours is usually pretty fast-paced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that keeps people interested.
What do you think I got my ideas from my band?
What musicians influenced you, either locally or nationally, or internationally?
Well, I mean, you know, to begin with, I like B.B. King, you know, and then I got, you know, I started listening to, you know, Albie King and Freddie King and Guitar Slim. I just, you know, so many people. I mean, I can't think, you know, I don't have a list in front of me, but it just started with B.B. King. And it just, when I joined Roomful, we used to go to Kansas City a lot, and there was a record store there. It was all vinyl, and you could find like all kinds of stuff. And so I would go there and buy, you know, as many records as I had money to buy with, and you know, that's how I kind of started to listen to all. It just branched out, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Something I did when I was a kid. I always bring this up too. When I was a kid, I would look on the back of the records.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, when I bought the Stones' Love You Live, I want to know who Muddy Waters was.
Muddy, yeah.
So I went and bought the Muddy Waters record.
Right, yeah.
Did you do that too?
Well, I was a little bit too young, I guess, at that point to, you know, I don't think I really got into the British invasion thing that big. I was listening to other stuff, R&B stuff like that, and then the Stones. I was a Beatles fan, really, and didn't really realize that those guys were doing Little Richard and stuff like that in the beginning. It didn't really dawn on me. I just thought they were the Beatles, and that was their stuff. But like a lot of people thought, the some of the Stones stuff, they didn't know where it came from. Eric Clapton and all of that. Those people sort of, brought that into the limelight, and then people found out later where it came from.
Okay.
But as far as the more obscure people, I kind of had to search that stuff out on my own, looking through records and stuff.
Later on.
Yeah, later on. Yeah.
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 Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris Vachon.
See you later.
Great stories.
Thank you.